One man, one Murloc, one giant angry badger. This is Blue Please. It begins now.
Yes, indeed, folks. Welcome to Blue Please here on cynicalbrit.com with myself, Total Biscuit. The date today is the 30th of April, 2010. It is 8 p.m. British Standard Time. It is 3 p.m. EST. It is 9 p.m. Central European Summer Time. Now, accounting for the fact that we have quite a few listeners over there. You should probably acknowledge them in some respect. My name is Total Biscuit. I am on the stream. I'm on the cam, looking like I'm going to make you an offer that you can't refuse. I'm pretty sure they don't sound like that, but hey, what have we got coming for you in the show today? I shall tell you. Yes, indeed. Things have been happening, folks. Big developments, as it were. Very much so. So, some of you may, in fact, have noticed. MMO Champion will tell you there's been some big changes made, ladies and gents. Oh, yes, many changes. And we've got Cataclysm raid information coming up for you later on the show. Big deal. Lots of people are upset. I'm going to laugh at them. Absolutely. And anyone that said I got the raid... Why would anyone say that I've got the date wrong? It's the 30th of April, 2010. You noobs. It's as simple as that. Never listen to the chat room, ladies and gentlemen. What have I got coming up for you? I've got that, and I've also got information regarding the upcoming badge changes, or non-changes, as is more accurate. We're talking about that a little bit later on the show. Your chance to contribute, as always, it is the illusion of choice. Email the Murloc at cynicalbrit.com. That is the Murloc at cynicalbrit.com. And we'll get things sorted out. See whether or not you've got anything worthwhile to add to the show. We shall see. It's been a good week for drama, folks. It's been a good week for discussion. Well, that's actually a lie, it hasn't. People are terrible at discussing these changes. Absolutely abysmal, really. They don't look at it in a reasonable respect in any way. You know what the crazy thing is? The worst thing is that you have to come to this show to hear a non-sensationalist view of this particular change. That's nuts. I'm sorry, it is. The most sensationalist show, aside from some terrible show hosted by people with names like Poultry. Yes, Mr. and Mrs. Poultry, I think that's what they're called. Yeah, that's pretty sensationalist, but that's most of them crying on air. You won't hear any crying on air on this show, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of shouting, perhaps. We shall see. Otherwise, it's been a pretty good week overall. Not really got an awful lot done in WoW. Still trying to decide which realm to go to. No idea. Might be the annual change back to the Total Halibut names, and some fanboy's gone and stolen the Total Biscuit name in all the realms. Having said that, of course, that is not remotely unreasonable, and they are entirely entitled to this particular name. No, I'm kidding, of course. They're idiots and retards, and they need to be thrown down a well. Possibly a well that's on fire. Like that well in the middle of the ocean right now that seems to be leaking oil everywhere. Good lord. Get in the chat room, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening live. If you're not, well, you're missing out. Tune in live every Friday. That would be for the best of your health. Yes, indeed. CynicalBrit.com, click the chat button at the bottom of the screen, get involved. The video wall is up. There are many people in there. We have a rotating Murloc, an empty chair, a token black man, a guy in a large hat, a guy who barely looks at the screen and seems to be playing some kind of video game. Some guy on that retarded horse, some guy that looks to be utterly stoned, some guy that I can't see because he's out of focus, a guy in a gas mask, the protagonist from Prototype, and something. Yes, indeed. Good stuff. Right, ladies and gents, shall we get on with it? I think that's probably a reasonable bet. Let's make it happen.
Mail time! That sounds like it's mail time! Here's the mail.
It never fails.
It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes,
I want to wail.
Yes, indeed, folks, it is time for the mail. Let's go and have a look and see what we've got in the mailbag. We have many things. A lot of email today. So let's try and clear through it as quickly as possible. Now, I did star these. Where the hell have they gone? Yes, there we go. Makes things easier. Come on, Gmail. Cooperate. Here we go. Question. From Jason Kofi, he says this. First of all, love all your shows and other sycophantic ramblings. Oh, dear Lord. Let's get past that. Right, I just wanted to comment on your view on making heroics hard again. Of course, crowd control would be a way to start the shift, but if you make the demand so great, i.e. Magister's Terrace, classes that don't provide a method of CC will have a hard time finding a group. Yes, I understand you could run with guildies, but purely from a random sense, it causes undue cherry-picking. I can only imagine getting an instant vote kick because my cat druid doesn't have viable crowd control. Right, well, I suppose that is possible, honestly. But you've also got to bear in mind, with all this nonsense homogenization, the one silver lining of the whole thing is that you should have some form of crowd control, I would imagine, in Cataclysm, as will everyone else. That's something you've got to bear in mind. And also bear in mind that you don't necessarily have to have everyone with crowd control. I mean, you're not going to have a situation whereby you have to have 3 guys doing CC. That's just not going to happen. So in a 5-man group, you've got your tank, you've got your healer, and then you've got 3 potential guys who've got CC, who may have CC, and you might need 1 to 2 of them. And I would imagine that it would be properly balanced to make that happen, and ensure that you don't get matched into a group that's like all cat druids, which of course would wreck everything. That would be pretty dumb. I wouldn't put it past them, but you never know. I'm hoping that that is not an issue. I really hope that it isn't, because that would just be so utterly stupid. I understand your point of view, though. But you've also got to bear in mind that right now the concern is getting good 5-man content into Cataclysm, because otherwise what happens to Wrath happens to Cata. And Cata's supposed to be the Great White Hope. Or in the case of Deathwing, the Great Black Hope. Or in the case of Beedrone, the Great Black Hope. Whatever the case. I want to see good 5-man content. I want to see heroic content on the level of TBC. And if that means Magister's Terrace, so be it. And honestly, I'll make the compromise and say if that means a little bit of class homogenization, so be that as well. Give everyone crowd control. I don't care. I just want some fun content. You got to pick your battles, ladies and gentlemen. And if I've got to pick between one and the other, then I absolutely, every time, will pick fun content. That makes sense. Also, I'm late to the game, but I wonder what the beef was between yourself and the Bind on Equip or podcast or whatever. If entertainment is the ultimate goal, and they all seem to accomplish the same goal, in any event, thanks for your hard work. I was a beef over Twitter a little while ago. Bind on Equip and Turkey Cast and some other retarded podcast decided it would be a good idea to go and rail on a show that I quite like. It's not really my thing all of the time. The kind of humour doesn't sort of gel with my particular sensibilities because I'm English and evidently above you all as a direct result of that. But they decided to hop on at an explicitly marked podcast. Bear in mind, it's disclaimed, it's got explicit marked on it in iTunes, and they decided to rag on it over Twitter. They decided to gang up on the guys for swearing. Right. Okay. And in doing so, I might add, used way more offensive phrases and terms than was ever done so on the show in question. Hypocrites. Bleeding hearts are always hypocrites, ladies and gentlemen. Just bear this in mind. Every time you find a bleeding heart in life, every time you find someone that believes they can ride around on that retarded moral high horse of theirs, whether or not it be blue, sparkly, or otherwise, then just beware that person. Because those people are the worst. They really are. Those people are always the most cruel, the most mean-spirited, and indeed I would go as far as to say evil. Seriously, they are. Give me an honest guy who is angry a lot and doesn't like people and isn't afraid to show it. Give me one of those. At least you know what you're getting with a person like that. When it comes to bleeding hearts, all you end up getting is stabbed in the back. That I can guarantee you. There are genuinely nice people, there are genuinely nasty people, and then there are the bleeding hearts, which are worse than both put together. Alright, ladies and gents, let's get on. Plenty more mail to go, and plenty more content to go as well today. I've got a surprise for you later on the show, by the way, so you might want to stay tuned. Hey, TB, do you think that Blizzard will come up with any new or unique, I would assume, boss abilities or mechanics for Cataclysm? At this point, one has to wonder if they could think of anything new that wouldn't just be an old mechanic with a twist. That's from Ragavale of Doomhammer EU. Yeah, I kind of get your point there. You got to bear in mind that most of the really interesting boss mechanics are actually those that are just spins on something else. When you break everything down to its very core, a boss mechanic is always going to be similar to another boss mechanic. It depends just how far you want to dissolve it down to its base elements. I mean, think about it. You've got boss mechanics that seem complex, but when you really look at them, when you break them down to the basics, it's like, oh, well, this is just tank and spank with this added onto it. I have no doubt that Blizzard could come up with some interesting boss mechanics, honestly. I know ICC gives you the impression that perhaps not, but you've got to bear in mind there are some nice boss mechanics in there. For instance, Mark of Fallen Champion, the blood mechanic from Deathbringer Salfang, that's pretty new. The entirety of the flying thing, you know what I'm talking about, the airship battle, that's pretty new. Most of Putricide is pretty new as well. The Festagut encounter, that's pretty new. Rotface had some interesting stuff in there as well. Syndragoza, it was kind of recycled, but the thing about Syndragoza is that it builds on existing mechanics and makes them tougher. It makes them more complex, and it's okay to do that. Honestly, it really is. Build on the success of what you did previously, and you will get a better result. Honestly. Sounds like a fair point and a fair idea to me. But yeah, I would never underestimate Blizzard's propensity to come up with something interesting, honestly. There is no reason to do so. Right, moving on, ladies and gents. This one's from Frode, and he says this: I'm just wondering if you actually notice any difference between PvE and PvP realms anymore. When was the last time you were actually in a fight against someone from the opposing faction? Don't you think World PvP has died since they introduced the flying mount? And damn, I hate people who say Wintergrasp is World PvP. It is not. Well, I can't disagree with that. It's a battleground that you can accidentally wander into. It's kind of annoying, actually, because I can end up flying over it while it's in progress and then falling to my death. It's not helpful, honestly. I wish it would just be all the way over there, just not in the way whatsoever. There are differences, and to be honest, those differences tend to wax and wane depending on the release of expansion packs. Yes, I would agree, flying mounts do make World PvP kind of tricky, but also bear in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that you cannot fight in the air. So, you can't be doing any questing whatsoever. Honestly, it was the same argument that was put together when people said that epic mounts killed World PvP. Just normal epic land mounts. Like, oh, well, they can run away and there's no way to catch them, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but to be honest, that's never what happened with World PvP anyway. World PvP sort of breaks down to, do you see a red guy? Do you see an enemy guy? Is it near your quest hub? Is it maybe killing your mobs? Then I gank it. I like ganking. Ganking is fun. I have no issues with that. If you don't like it, roll PvE. I would prefer the option to kill a snivelling, dirty Alliance bastard than have to stand there and, you know, chain emote or something like that. So it's not particularly aggressive, is it? The answer would have to be, you know, what are we supposed to use? Harsh language? Well, evidently. But we can't do that either because we can't speak to them. So I suppose we type /rude and /wrath over and over again. Yeah, fantastic. Or not, as the case may be. Bloody awful, more like it. I cannot stand. I really cannot stand having to tolerate those people. No, really. Honestly. I can't stand it. Okay, we've got time for one last email if we're quick. Hey, TB, long time listener, first time writer. This is from Gundolf of Steam Wheel Cartel. You've recently expressed the dislike for having to run a normal raid before being able to raid an heroic mode. Recently, Blizzard announced their plans for raids in Cataclysm. It seems they're making things even worse. I remember some interview with big guilds in the show Pug a while ago on WoW Radio, and they expressed that they didn't quite like the fact that normal and heroic progression were non-linear, and they were quite like that Blizzard did exactly what they have done in ICC. It seemed to me a good idea when I thought about it at the time, but now that they've implemented it, it's quite clear it doesn't quite work, well, at least for most people. On the other hand, I am pretty sure that the big guilds are happy they can finally complete everything in a linear fashion. Wouldn't it be better to just have it on a boss-by-boss basis, so that when you beat a boss on normal, then you are allowed to go back for that specific boss on heroic? You do realise that's what they're doing, right? Did you read the description? That's what it says. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. But yeah, I absolutely agree that that's what's going to be happening, because that's what's going to be happening. The rundown of it is that they're going to let you kill a normal boss a few times, yeah? Basically, you've got to get it on farm. Once you get the boss on farm, and you've proven that you can beat it multiple times in a row, then you get to do it on heroic. And you don't have to complete the instance. That's it. It's simple as that. I've got no problems with that whatsoever. And personally, I'd prefer no gating at all and just say, hey, go heroics. But I'm okay with that as a compromise, honestly. It also allows them to balance their fights a little bit better, and they can bring the gear element in there as well. If they know that people attempting, say, the first boss of an instance on heroic are at least going to have a few bosses worth of gear to help them out. So that helps with the tuning. If you design an encounter whereby you cannot assume any level of gear whatsoever, then tuning the heroics can be a little bit trickier. And therein lies the problem with that. So I am okay with this form of gating. I don't really like gating in general, but overall, It's not a bad system, and I'm looking forward to seeing it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tall Biscuit. You are listening to Blue Please here on CynicalBrit.com. I will be right back after this, folks. Enjoy.